Now, our next speaker tonight is here. This is Patrick Vanderberg. He's the director of GeoVital Australia, New Zealand, and America. GeoVital has a long-standing history in natural health and environmental medicine. Patrick and their consultants worldwide assist many practitioners and their patients, and also teach anyone interested how to investigate your home, your workplace, for radiation and other toxic issues. Patrick has come all the way from Melbourne today to teach us a little bit about this topical issue. Please welcome Patrick.
Thank you, everybody, for coming here today. Congratulations to all the graduates, of course. You spending all that time learning about nutrition, but also the people not associated to the school just yet. The fact that you're here also to have a wonderful meal, but also to learn a few things, also shows to me your dedication to health, not only for yourself, but also the people that you'll be helping with your knowledge. We can go to the next one, thank you. We're going to be talking about radiation. Now, radiation is invisible, normally. So before I get stuck into it, and I've got a lot to cover, so I'll keep the speed right up, but I'm just going to show you a 2-minute video of a typical situation that we find in 95% of bedrooms we go into. And just keep in mind that all our cells have electrical receptors, and it's very hard for them to work optimally when they're constantly being exposed to radiation. So what you'll see in this video is something called electric fields that comes from the wiring inside the wall, and then we'll get going after that.
Yeah, runter. Okay. So this is the situation normal in all the houses without a demand switch, that you have the current on the wire.
Electric fields.
If you have the light on or off, it doesn't matter. So we have to find a place and figure out which wire makes the problem, which fuses, yeah, and so that we can tell the electrician where he should put the demand switch. Jetzt aktivieren wir. Now we activate, yeah, and when we shut the light off, so go to sleep, it takes about 1 to 2 seconds, and now we get the electricity off the bed or out of the bed. Yeah? So, and it's disturbing the whole nerve system. Mm-hmm. So everything, I told you, everything is working from our computer over the nerve system to the rest of the body.
If you have 300 or this, then I'm knocking down those receptors. So of course that we're gonna have cardiovascular problems, neurological problems. I didn't mention this, but the 2 main causes of death in the whole world is cardiac problems, and if you see cardiac problems, the cardiovasculatory system have his gated voltage channels, and neurological problems, the same channels. I mean, different. There's 149 different varieties of those channels, but those are the same channels. They cannot pick electricity, because if they pick electricity, I can tell you, they're gonna stop functioning well.
Yep.
All right, so just a little example to make that radiation a bit more visible. Now, who are we? GeoVital is originally a naturopathic clinic based in Austria. This is our setup we've got over there. The view is absolutely gorgeous. They say that life is still the way it should be when you get over there. So these 2 buildings are ours. We have a clinic, we have an academy, and then the building behind us is where we do kind of mental health issues with patients, and we also make a toxin-free mattress, which is also produced over there. Now, we started off as a naturopathic clinic, which is still going and servicing that local area. But we discovered a while back that we can do wonderful things in the clinic. and send people home, but if we didn't fix the health issues at home that was preventing them from resting and regenerating properly, a lot of patients came back with exactly the same problem 6 or 12 months later. And then we'd be back at work and we try and prop them up again. So it's been this environmental health issues that we've specialized in more greatly. We looked at different health issues that we could find in the bedroom, and it turned out that there were 3 health issues, 3 health burdens in the bedroom, that if we took care of those 3, we had massive results with our patients. And so we've started specializing in those. First subject is man-made radiation. So that's the high voltage power lines that are running up and down the state. It's also the little power lines running up and down your street. It's the ones running underground. It's the cable to your house. It's your meter box. It's all the wiring inside your house, the solar panels, the inverters, everything to do with power. Then it's also got to do with everything that's wirelessly transmitted through the air. So that's your mobile phone towers, your phones, your Bluetooth. Ironically, I'm holding 2 of these devices right now, right? Got a little microphone here and a microphone there. Radar, airport navigation systems, baby monitors, cordless phones. I mean, the list is endless. And then the second subject was excesses of natural radiation. Going back to what our ancestors did, we also were exposed to a certain environment. Excesses of natural radiation also had a massive influence on people's health. Quite a subject in itself. We'll skip that for this evening, but I'd love to come back and talk to you about that another time. And then finally, the other pillar was the mattresses that people were sleeping on, because you're on a mattress for 8 hours out of 24, and typically mattresses are designed to be manufactured cheap and sell well, but after that the relationship ends. And always, in a room, I always like to ask a little question: how many of the people here have bought a mattress twice, more than once in their lifetime? Right? Now, how many of you have bought the exact same mattress twice? Very few. Because typically a mattress purchase ends up in a disappointment. You're going to try your luck somewhere else yet again. Okay. All right, now let's start with the man-made radiation, which will be the main focus of the talk. So, there's lots of research, peer-reviewed research about the health effects of radiation. Now, there's also an enormous amount of research that claims that there's no health effects. We could argue about the fact that a lot of that research is funded by the telecommunications industries. So, you got to place your faith somewhere. Here are just a couple. This is one particular research that talks about breast cancer and melatonin. The government exposure limit to electromagnetic field that you can be exposed to from the power lines running past your property is 1,000 milligauss. This research shows that between 2 and 12 milligauss, melatonin is blocked in its natural anti-cancer action. And it's a very important function it has. Very, very significant at a much lower rate. This particular one researched the effectiveness of tamoxifen, a very popular breast cancer medication, which was seen to be rendered useless at 6 milligauss. So if you could imagine somebody being in the fight of their life, trying to keep life normal, going back to work, might work at a register or something electronic, maybe those magnetic anti-theft gates you see in the supermarkets, that'll be enough magnetic fields to basically render that medication useless. So pinning all their hopes on that. Then, of course, there's also lots of research on fertility subjects. This particular study was interesting. They had was a male fertility clinic. They had about 600 men in the study, and they simply asked them, how much exposure to your mobile phone do you have? 0 to 2 hours, 2 to 4, 4 to 6, 6 to 8 hours a day. So let's assume that was not talk time. Then they compared it with the sperm samples they had on file, and it matched perfectly. The more exposure, the worse the samples were. Then there's also quite a few studies on leukemia or childhood leukemia and magnetic fields. A lot of those are related to the big transformer towers you see walking, going up and down the state. Also, Australian studies basically showing that at 4 milligauss, we talked about that 1,000 being perfectly acceptable. At 4 milligauss, we start seeing increases of childhood leukemia. I recently wrote an article about cancer in the house and why aren't we measuring radiation. And I came across this research that looked at the distance from a mobile phone tower, from the walkers and the likelihood of childhood leukemia. And it turned out that between 0 and 600 meters from a high voltage power line, there was 110%, I believe, more cases of childhood leukemia than the control group. But that kind of didn't surprise me. What did surprise me was that the second group was 600 to 1200 meters, and even in that distance, they still had 74% more children with childhood leukemia. That's quite a distance, over a kilometer. Next one. Then there's also research starting to link autism spectrum disorders to radiation exposure. They're now looking at where the pregnant mother slept while being pregnant, from when they have kids with autism, and they're finding a likelihood of a lot of magnetic field exposure during pregnancy. We are also working with in America with some hospitals, and in Mexico with hospitals with kids that have autism. We're changing absolutely nothing to the approach. We're just shielding the bedroom, and we're getting wonderful results with that already. Okay. And then there's also effects on plants. So it's certainly not us that is just affected. Yeah. And then there's a thing called electrohypersensitivity, which is a term you'll start hearing more and more. These are people that are affected, or they have symptoms when they're exposed to radiation. This could be as simple as being on the phone for an hour and getting a headache, which when you start thinking about it, probably a few people here already have that. To it can be as severe as that they can't go into a public place like a library because they got the Wi-Fi on. They can't go in there anymore. So the severity levels change, but that particular research showed that a lady sitting in a low radiation room, and when the radiation was turned on without her knowing, she would get heart palpitations, headaches, and that would disappear when it was turned off. There's a thing called the Bioinitiative Report. If you go to bioinitiative.org, you can give them your email address and they'll send you a PDF to download. It's a 1,600-page document put together by 29 international authors, amongst which 22 PhDs, and they researched the available research, right? So, and being a PDF file, if you go Control F, right, Control for find function, you can look up any symptom that you got your interest or your patient has an interest in, and here we go, page 612. There it talks about sleeplessness or headache or diabetes or those sorts of things. With that, just from a nutrition point of view, there's also research showing, for example, that these people were just exposed to a cordless phone base station, which a lot of people have in their house, showed to trigger the sympathetic nervous system. And for those in the room who don't know how that works, your nervous system has two states, sympathetic or parasympathetic. Sympathetic is basically your fight and flight response. Things go wrong when the tiger comes past the camp, we get ready to take a bolt. Your parasympathetic state is where you should normally be, that's your maintenance mode. And this research shows that this simple base station of a cordless phone was triggering the sympathetic nervous system. So if we extrapolate that to, turn your laptop on and look for a Wi-Fi network, how many can you find, right? And so yes, we have to worry about nutrition, but could it maybe also be that in this complete environment we're now exposed to, that our sympathetic nervous systems are all being irritated? And we know when the sympathetic nervous system kicks in, what does that do? Vasoconstriction, right? So that's why your blood pressure goes up when you hold a mobile phone. There's other research on that. And it slows down your digestion to get ready for that tiger, right? Okay. All right, so what's the problem? The problem is that the exposure standards are set too high. And this is second-hand information, but what I've been told is that when it was time that they said, well, mobile phone towers, what should we set as the maximum exposure? Do you know who they asked? The telecommunications companies. They said, well, fine, we'll set it here. So they're way too high. If you can give us one click over there, yeah. So this is in microwatts per square meter. We're not going to go too technical, but it's an expression of strength of an electromagnetic power density of a transmitter. So that's the exposure standards in a lot of countries. Now, everything underneath are health burdens that research has shown turns up at levels lower than that. And then the ironic thing is, one more, is that that's the level that a mobile phone will work optimally. Right? So we're being exposed to an enormous amount of radiation for really no good reason. Our phones would still work with much less. But in the meantime, we've got all these health effects. Opening up the blood-brain barrier, for example, chemicals going through that weren't supposed to go in there. Lots of things. This is an EEG, you know, how your brain waves look. This is lying, I think it was 6 feet from an electrical wire. This is the Wi-Fi turned on, and this is what it's supposed to look like when nothing's on. Okay. Now the world is slowly starting to wake up to this. It starts off with the children, because we're all, you know, intuitively more protective of our little ones. So we're seeing countries where Wi-Fi is being banned in schools, daycare centers. Taiwan has banned the use of Wi-Fi or wireless devices by under 2-year-olds. So if they catch parents giving a smartphone to their children in the trolley to keep them entertained, they're up for about a $50,000 fine. Okay, so yeah, these are people that we're starting to wake up to this. There's also a liability issue. If this whole Wi-Fi story goes the wrong way, then it could be very much as asbestos. So if an employer used to have Wi-Fi in their school, for example, and 10 years later somebody attracts cancer and they can prove Wi-Fi had something to do with that, you might be 100% liable, even though you've been only a small part of the exposure over the lifetime of that person, just like how that's gone with asbestos. So houses are being shielded now. The bedroom is always key, but it's of course lovely if you can do a whole house, which is what happens there. We also shield entire apartment buildings, like this apartment building on Lake Constance in Germany. It's 9 buildings with 46 apartments in each, and we're shielding every single one of them because the developer wants to promote healthy homes. Okay. Closer to home, you know, also involved with building processes here. This is a house in New Zealand that was built with hemp and also shielded. Also, you know, the media is starting to take notice. We shielded a hotel room in Austria because hotels, they get a lot of the same question. People say, they ring up and they say, have you got Wi-Fi? And the people hope that you say yes. But there's an increasing number of people that ring up and say, have you got Wi-Fi? Like they're hoping for a no, right? And now you can't likely not have Wi-Fi because the most amount of people will want Wi-Fi. But what we've done here is that we've completely shielded a room. We've taken care of the electrical wiring. It's got one of our mattresses in there. And so even though it's a booming business hotel, for those people that would desire it, there is a shielded room available. And that, you know, was taken notice by this magazine called Global Briefing. Okay, so what am I going to try and do real quick? In terms of your knowledge of your knowledge about radiation, you can be a bungler, a stumbler, or a detective of environmental medicine, right? The bungler, that's the person who doesn't know anything about radiation, right? And so he's powerless to do anything about it, and he often stands in the possession of unwanted gadgets that don't really do anything or much at all. Right? Then we have the stumbler. The stumbler knows a little bit about radiation but doesn't understand the logic of actually dealing with it. So he keeps spending money on things that don't really help him. What we need to be is a detective. Right? The detective is somebody who knows the logic and spends their money or you know, makes changes where it's very durable. So my promise to you is by the time I'm finished, you'll be a lot more of a detective than a bungler. All right, so there's different types of radiation, so we'll go through those real quick. Yeah, give me that one. All right, so we've got high-frequency electromagnetic radiation. That's everything that's wireless, everything that goes through the air. We've got low-frequency electromagnetic fields, or magnetic fields, that's the power lines. And we have electric fields associated with the electrical wiring in your house. Okay, so high-frequency radiation is on the increase, and it only ever gets worse. They're getting more clever in disguising the mobile phone towers because there's a bit of an eyesore. Plus, when the mobile phone towers goes up, the real estate value drops. Right? We're all investing a lot of money in real estate. somebody decides to put a mobile phone tower on their roof, and your savings are not actually that much anymore. All right, so this is in Melbourne, a light post has just been extended on. You see a lot of this in New Zealand as well. Actually, a mobile phone tower on the top. Okay, also, a lot of organizations that get a little bit of money for having these towers up. So, you see this sort of thing on churches, love your neighbor. Disguising, they're also getting, quite good at. Can we spot it here? Next one. Yeah, it's on the top of the tower, nicely camouflaged in a brick pattern. Also, power companies are teaming up with the telecommunications company. So if the pylons weren't already bad enough, now we also see combinations with the mobile phone tower transmitters on the top. In Germany, they've got the disguising of them to a fine art. I'm sure nobody can pick it here. Click it. There it is, that little chimney-looking shape. This one closer to home. Can we see this one? Yeah, that's in the Gold Coast, palm tree. All right, now we're always looking at those vertical panels, right? And yes, they're not good for us. But what we really should be looking at is those round things, those drums, the directional transmitters. Mobile phone towers, most of them don't have data connected to them. They only have electricity connected to them. So those round drums are used to send all the data from one tower to the next, right? So we have one tower, let's say, talks to 1,000 mobile phones, all looking at a video on YouTube. And all those 1,000 videos needs to go through one of those things to the next one, so that data gets moved from one place to the next. To move all that data, they need to use higher frequencies, and they have more power, they damage the finer organs. So it's those higher frequencies that are very important also to protect ourselves against. Okay, so a situation that you get with the directional transmitters is that you could live nowhere near a mobile phone tower, but because you're caught between the crossfire of two of these things, you could be exposed to an enormous amount of radiation. It won't show up on your mobile phone because that's got nothing to do with your signal strength. But you're being blasted all the way through. And we see patients like this all the time. We come in and they've already worked it out. They give me a map and I say, this is one tower, this is the other. I'm exactly in the middle and I've got headaches every week. And inevitably, the smart meter. Show of hands, how many people have a smart meter already? Not too many, which is lovely. Try and keep that way. The problem with the smart meter, the meter box has always been an issue because there's typically magnetic fields around a meter box. It's therefore not a good idea to park a bed or your favorite chair or baby's cot against any wall that's got the meter box on the other side of it. But a smart meter makes it worse by adding a transmitter to the situation. So you have high frequency radiation being added to the mix. It can be shielded against, but there's other issues with the smart meters. It's better to avoid it. Victoria was the first state where these things were pushed. A lot of people were having health issues. Action groups were formed, and basically the consensus is with most people, they lock their meter box. If somebody wants to read the meter, they'll come out and unlock it. But whatever you do, try and just tell them go away. And they kept going away until eventually they made this list that you were like a conscientious objector. Almost like vaccinations. Okay, and then the personal devices. We've got, of course, the mobile phones, the computers, the tablets, the cordless phones, and the baby monitors. Baby monitors would be far worse than smart meters, to put things in perspective. So if you've got a baby, doesn't take on weight, and all those sorts of things, this has got to be looked at. We've got to move away from this wireless technology. Fitness monitors, which just makes me laugh. Right, high frequency radiation is shown to raise blood pressure. So let's wear one of these things and see how my blood pressure is going. Wonderful. Next one. All right. We also start getting toys now with Wi-Fi in it. So an example of that is Hello Barbie, in an effort of Mattel to grant every girl's dream to actually be able to talk to Barbie, and it answers you back based on what you say. It's the cutest doll ever, but it uses Wi-Fi, and the manual actually encourages it to hold it close. And we've done some testing. There's a video on that. You can find that on YouTube. Not so good at all. We've got home monitoring systems, things that can tell you about your humidity in your house and your temperature, those sorts of things. What we'll get next is gardening monitoring equipment. You know, you have 17 plant pots. They'll all have a Wi-Fi monitor in it, and your app on your phone will tell you that plant pot number 15 needs more nutrients, because we need all that. And then there's also a lot of gadgets which are just atrocious. The worst ones I can think of are iPotty and Swipe and Feed, if you can do the next one. Right, so iPotty is something where you can put your toddler on a Wi-Fi high-frequency device and keep them entertained and trying to potty train them. And this must be the absolute worst thing I've ever seen. A baby feeder where you can click your smartphone in. So God forbid you might have some bonding time with your infant, but you can check up on your social status on Facebook and all that sort of stuff. And of course you're right on their chest. It's absolutely atrocious. All right, and of course, this has got to stop as well, right? Right. Girls, I'm sure we all know this, but girls get born with all eggs in place, right? So in my opinion, every girl's bedroom needs to be shielded because we have no idea what this exposure is doing that to us. But having a mobile phone tower on your fallopian tubes can't help, right? Also, the bra and sticking the mobile phone in there's people that, they are developing cancers exactly where their mobile phone used to sit in their bra. It just shouldn't be that close. Right? Keep your phone away from you. In the bedroom on flight mode is fine, but still don't have it under your pillow. It's still an electronic device which will still produce radiation. Okay, so again, waking up our detective. When it comes to all these mobile phones, there's an enormous range of gadgets you can buy. Stickers, crystals, and dream catchers, and everything with wonderful promises that somehow the radiation of your mobile phone is eliminated, harmonized, neutralized, those sort of vague words, which certainly don't come with a promise or a satisfaction guarantee. Radiation is a physical force. So in our opinion, our logic, the only thing that helps is by putting a barrier between you and that physical force, right? Next one. So our patients asked us, listen, I keep getting a headache. We're not into mobile phone accessories, but we started making a pouch which has shielded fabric in it. So you have your phone on one side, the fabric on the other. And so when you're on the phone, it's in the middle as a barrier, or you can have it in your pocket. If it has to be there, have that barrier in the middle as well. I've brought some, if somebody wants them, come talk to me. And we're donating 3. We'll devise some clever questions to ask you later about the presentations, and we'll give a couple away. All right, then magnetic fields. Magnetic fields has to do with power lines. So when you look at a picture like this, you see the high voltage power lines in the back. A lot of people wouldn't, necessarily want to live so close. But I'm sure most of you in the room would have never looked at those power lines, the ones that run up and down the street. They can be just as problematic because they're far closer to your house. Doesn't matter if they're underground, they produce the same type of radiation. So this is something that should be measured before anybody commits to any property, renting or buying. You can measure this yourself, you just need a reasonably qualitative tool, and you can weed out the bad houses from the good ones. Magnetic fields you can't shield against, so even we are powerless against that. That's why it's so important to measure. Okay, waking up our detective again. Solar panels. Aren't they great for our environment? Yeah, they are. Just not your environment. Right? We are electrical beings. Solar power depends a little bit on how they're built. They can produce magnetic fields underneath them. The inverter is a big problem. So if you haven't got solar and you're insisting on wanting solar, if you have the space, you want to put the panels in the garden, not on your roof. If it has to be on your roof, put it on the garage or in a space of the house you don't use during the day. Because of course at night when the sun's gone, the problem is also gone. But if somebody spends a lot of time at home during the day, this can be a hell. So great for the environment, just not so good for us. And then to be another party pooper on another subject, electric cars. Too bad, isn't it? Great for the environment, terrible for you. It's been tested done. Basically, cars aren't all that innocent anyway, but normally it's the driver that gets the worst and the other 3 seats are okay. An electric car is bad all round because you're sitting on the batteries and the chargers and the levels are higher. So again, if somebody's trying to get pregnant or they are pregnant, you want to tell them not to go on joyous weekend rides in any car, but especially not in a hybrid or electric car. Okay, so that takes us to the electric fields. All right, now that was exactly what we showed in the video at the beginning. So that comes from the wiring in the walls. So when we're building new houses, we can do a lot of meaningful work for you or patients. And yeah, we can use our special switches for that. Okay, yeah, another one. So, in our arsenal, we've developed some solutions for all these issues. We're certainly not the only ones that do that, but we are certainly the only ones that have come to this whole subject from a patient's perspective. We have patients with chronic health issues. We need solutions that help them with their chronic health issues. If it doesn't do that, it's just a product, not a solution, and we're not interested. So we tend to have the highest performance, the cleaner ingredients, all those sorts of things. So we have those special switches that can be installed to cut the power to a circuit when it's not in use. We have shielding paint that can be applied inside a room to shield against the transmitter radiation from outside. You can do that yourself. A 10-year-old could do it. It's not difficult. We have mesh that can be put on the carpets. We have fabrics, which is woven from silver and copper, which also reflect that radiation outwards. One more. With building projects, we can do exceptionally good work because we can basically avoid all the typical problems we find in other houses. So wiring is important and the outside radiation. And one more. Retrospective protections or existing houses. If somebody is renting, then we might not want to paint a room. We can shield an individual bedroom or bed with a canopy, or otherwise we can shield the internals of the house or a bedroom or the whole house if desired. Okay, then trying to wake up our detective again. So shielding one wall, this is often a question we get. We have a smart meter. I want to buy a liter of shielding paint and protect against a smart meter. Shielding paint is reflective. It's like a mirror. So if you have a smart meter here and you paint this wall, yes, you've deflected that smart meter away. But it also reflects on this side. So the 3 mobile phone towers that are on this side of my bedroom wall, they'll still come in, get reflected in the surface I've created behind my bed, and I get those twice. Same with the 52 smart meters in the street on that side. So in a bedroom, you almost never do one wall. You want to create a box, keep everything out from all directions. Okay, shielding clothing and bed covers. There's a lot of gadgety things that are sold. When you take a body measurement of how much radiation your body takes on, it's often disappointing when you do that with shielding clothing. There's shielding boxer shorts and beanies and all that sort of stuff. If it gives somebody relief, fine, but it's not the solution to life's problems as it is portrayed to be. The key, and I can't stress that enough, is that bedroom. That's where your body does the resting and the regenerating, and that's what's got to be perfect. Okay, and shielding products are not all the same. Most of what we see in the industry is made for sales, not necessarily for an outcome with the patient. All right, so just to summarize, we've got the low-frequency magnetic fields from the power supply running past the property, on the ground, to the property, the meter box. Solar panels, we have the low-frequency electric fields from all the wiring in the wall, just coming out even if you're not using any power. We have the high-frequency radiation from the transmitters, everything that goes through the air. And then we have static charges, which we haven't covered yet, but for example, mattress materials can work up a static charge or statically are out of whack. And then geopathic stress, which is the excesses of natural radiation, also very important. And then just to briefly touch on that other pillar, the mattresses. Being naturopaths, we looked at, all right, with a mattress, what should it be made out of? Now, well, we do energetic therapies as well. We do things like muscle testing, electroacupuncture, Vega testing. So we started testing mattress materials. We were shocked. Basically anything foam type that got tested that had chemicals in it that people had intolerance issues with. Then we looked at natural materials. Well, the word natural is really a marketing term. Sounds good, but often doesn't mean much. Uranium is natural too. We don't make mattresses out of that. So latex, for example, was the absolute worst. More than half of our patients with chronic health issues were intolerant to latex. So again, somebody talks about being exhausted, being tired in the morning, ask a little deeper, what are you sleeping on? Horsehair, some people are okay with, or a lot are okay with, but some not. So we were looking for something that met our anti-intolerance goals. And so in the end, I mean, you would expect a naturopathic clinic to come up with something natural like coconut flour, leaf petals or something. But in the end, we went back to a foam. Now normally foams, they're made with oils, and then there's a chemical propellant that's used to make all those little bubbles. We don't do that. We use carbonated water instead. And so we're left with a toxin-free foam. It is an open structure, so when you sweat in it, it can actually get out, which memory foam is the absolute opposite of that. That's a closed cell structure, so it'll build up moisture and just sit there for years. It's anti-static. It's incredibly breathable. You can plant your face on the mattress and basically keep breathing, and that's a good test to do when you come home tonight. Pull the sheets back, plant your face on the, put those lips on that mattress and just keep breathing. See if you get anything. Right? Your skin is your second breathing organ. Right? We've got lungs first, and then we've got skin. If you're on a mattress that doesn't breathe for 8 hours out of 24, it doesn't help you much. So that's a very important feature. And then we wanted a cover that was washable, which wasn't a big ask. With most mattresses, you can't remove those little accidents. And that's made from Tensol, which is a very smooth fiber, good for people with skin issues, respiratory issues, and those sorts of things. Natural, renewable resource. Okay, and yeah, just to, with our detective, there's a lot of marketing things, so be careful. Silver, there's mattresses with silver in them. Have we heard of those? Yeah. Silver is a natural antibiotic, as you may know, but also silver doesn't distinguish between good and bad bacteria. So to lie on it every single night is ludicrous. And we found that with some of our patients as well. Plus, fibers can break. You start inhaling it, and you go into a whole area where you don't want to be. So you got to keep your eye open with mattresses, and you got to look who's behind it. What's the purpose of it? Now, when it comes to us, instead of just firing arrows in the dark and selling people stuff, we would much rather do an assessment of somebody's situation and know exactly what's amiss, and then take action. So we have people that can do assessments. We also run workshops where any of you could learn how to do these assessments, so you can help other people in your community on this subject. If you're a practitioner, then of course the patients you have, you can help with this, and you'll also attract new patients with this, which will benefit with your other modalities as well. All right, so a couple of quick things. What can you do right now? Yep. So get rid of your radio alarm clock and electric blankets. Electric blankets are directly linked to fetal growth defects and miscarriages. So we want to cut them up, burn them, just don't give them to somebody else. Mobile phones should stay out of a bedroom. All right, you can put it on flight mode, that's okay, but don't put it under your pillow because it still has a magnetic field around it because then it's on. Dimmers can produce a lot of magnetic fields. Those standing lights that you can dim and you have your favorite chair there. A lot of people say, I love this chair, I always fall asleep so quickly. Yeah, no wonder, because you have the life being drained out of you. So dimmers are typically bad. If you keep them full bright, it's often the least amount of radiation, but typically you want to move away from dimmers. The salt lamps, wonderful, very nice, but don't buy one with a dimmer on it. Just on and off. Those touch-sensitive bed lights, you can touch them, they go on, touch them again, they go brighter, brighter, off. They have a transformer in them. Even when they're off, they're always got an enormous amount of electromagnetic field around them. They have no room in the bedroom. Energy saver light bulbs, whole subject again. The fluorescent ones are the worst, those twisty-turny ones. You want to replace those with non-dimmable LED lights. Those are the best ones out of the energy saver family. With those fluorescent ones, they do have mercury in them. So if you remove them, be very careful and dispose them carefully so you don't break them. There's people that take this so serious. If you drop one on the carpet, they say you've got to cut that part of the carpet out. Keep clicking. All right, replace mattresses with metal spring mattresses with non-metal mattresses, but not a waterbed. They're in the same category as the electric blankets. With spring mattresses, they can be magnetic. And so when you come home tonight or tomorrow, I want you to do a little test. Grab yourself a compass and run your compass from one end of the bed up to the other end in 3 lines. Your compass needle should not deviate more than 5 degrees. If it does, it's got to go. It's too much. It interferes with our natural magnetic fields, which our bodies really need. If you're buying a bed frame, you want to go for something predominantly timber. Nuts and bolts is fine, but no big, expenses of metal in there. Don't use earthing mats or silver sheets on your bed. I'll take some questions maybe after the talk. That's a little bit elaborative. Don't sleep or sit against the meter box. If you've got a computer, which all of us do, try and keep the cables away from you. Tidy up your desk. We don't need all those power points at your feet. Put it all aside. The desktop doesn't need to be on your calf. You can put it on the other side of the desk and lean over to put that memory stick in. Just create some distance. If you've got a laptop, it's worthwhile pushing it back 30 centimeters. Get yourself a wired keyboard and work on that. And a wired mouse rather than have your hand on the laptop all the time. I can guarantee you'll be less exhausted come the end of a working day. Okay, laptop, terrible name for it. That should have been called tabletop. All right, so never on your lap. There are pads that you can buy to put underneath it that reduce that magnetic field, but of course only downwards. Everything still comes up. Don't sit near dimmable lights. If you're building new, a sheet metal roof will already shield a large part of your house against radio frequency radiation. So it's kind of a nice bonus. Consider putting shielding in and getting us involved to do some other things. Solar panels, try and keep them on an area that you don't use during the day, especially if people are home during the day. Have a Gauss meter in the family to measure magnetic field exposure. And finally, listen to your feelings. If an area feels wrong, then it probably is. Okay, Leanne asked about if I could elaborate on the earthing sheets. Okay, I've bursted some bubbles already this evening. All right, an earthing sheet, for those of you that don't know, is a bed sheet which has metal wiring running through it. This metal wiring is connected to an electrical cable, which is then connected to the power point or the outlet for our Americans. But it's not plugged into the active or the neutral, it's only plugged into ground. So it's connected to system ground, as that's called. Now the idea is that leads electronic pollution away. And it does, but there's a problem with it. It leads away static charges, and that's good. There's no argument with that. That's kind of the reason why our mattress is anti-static, to get rid of the problem in the first place. But there's no problem with that. The problem with it is that when you're exposed to the typical amount of radiation you get in the bedroom, so you get all these electric fields from the wiring, for example, by you lying on the sheet, you are grounded, and you become the way out. You actually attract more to yourself. Now, why do some people feel quite nice when I get these sheets? Because they're getting rid of the static charges. They probably have a mattress underneath that works up a static charge. They're getting rid of that static charge. So it's a short-term win, but it's long-term disaster. Now, if you take care of that bedroom the way we do, then there is no side effects with that earthing sheet anymore because the electronic pollution is dealt with. Then you can use your earthing sheet. But you probably also completely lost the need for it because you've just taken care of the bedroom the way you should have done anyway. So that's the thing with earthing. So you've got to be very careful with it. If you're an advocate, you can recommend it to people, but you got to impress on them that bedroom's got to be dealt with first before you put that sheet in place. Okay. Any other questions? Yeah, in the back. Yeah, question, have I heard of devices that you can plug in? There's a number, I don't want to pick on any particular brand. As a rough rule, if you see the words neutralize, harmonize, balance, I can't verify that with any of my instrumentation that it actually does anything. Some of these devices are just a block of wax that are exposed to a frequency. And that's it.
And just sorry, just to add to that, if we were to give this information to some of our clients about how to make our homes more safe, can we look up your website and
Yeah, we've got lots of articles on our website. There's a little booklet in our download section that's got a lot of those little tips like I gave today, things you can do already, but it tries to also hit the point home that there's some fundamental things in your bedroom that you're going to need help with to get those right. But yeah, I mean, just to touch on the neutralizers, harmonizers, balances, all that sort of $100, $150 sort of stuff. I'm not saying that none of them do anything, right? I'm just, what I would like to explain it as is that often their marketing crosses the line. They talk about protection, right? At most, it's something that energetically strengthens you, right? I'm in the distant past, I did Vega testing and electroacupuncture, and I've got some very expensive stuff standing in my office. Anybody interested? Talk to me. There's if you get the right crystals and you can test that on the person, a crystal can be supportive, but that's what it is. It's supportive, and to make that really graphical, it's like somebody hitting you in the head with a hammer every 2 hours, and somebody gives you paracetamol. That's supportive, but it's not a helmet. Right? So it may still be beneficial, but you're not dealing with the issue you actually should have been dealing with.
Most homes come like their bedrooms. Most homes are actually built and designed with PowerPoints to accommodate, like beside the bed for light.
Yeah. PowerPoints everywhere.
So they're all wired in anyway. So what difference does it make? Does it make a significant difference if you say, okay, fine, I'm going to turn the PowerPoint off. The wiring's still there. What difference does that make?
Almost nothing.
Yeah.
So you can unplug everything that's in that PowerPoint, or you can switch it on with unplugging is better, by the way, rather than switching, because the electric fields can still jump across. But the wiring in the wall being live is enough to have an electric field coming out 2 meters from the wall at 50 hertz every second, just mucking around with every single cell in your body.
What do you do with that then, knowing, because it's going to get very expensive for someone to actually say, fine, tell me electrician might remove that. What are the options?
Well, like what we do in assessment is that we would put a person in the bed and we measure their body and they go, wow, that's not good. And then we get the homeowner, often the husband, to measure the walls, and we go to the meter box and we start flicking switches. We basically turn everything off and I give him one circuit back, and he gives me feedback about what happens in that room. And then 5 or 10 minutes later, I'll know which of my circuits are the troublemakers. And then I turn all the innocent ones back on, and maybe 2 or 3, it's never 1. 2 or 3 circuits we leave off, and we get the wife back in the bed and we measure that foot again, and now instead of 1200 we've got 12. Hooray. Right? And then we get the electrician involved, and he installs those switches. I mean, they're not cheap, but they last, and if you moved you can take them with you. And those switches just get installed and they automatically do the work. So when you turn the last ceiling light off and that ceiling light was a problem, that switch will cut the power to the whole circuit. When you turn your bedside light off and that's the last thing on that PowerPoint circuit that uses electricity, the switch realizes that and cuts the power. If 2 o'clock in the morning, that's the beauty of it, you wake up and you go to the toilet, you flick that switch, the switch all the way in your meter box realizes you want your electricity back and opens the floodgate, light comes on like it was there all along. You do your business, back to bed, light off, power gets cut again.
I know the option is on, but do electricians have to be certified and have knowledge in that area, so you can
No.
pick up general?
Any electrician can do it, and often once they've done it, they're often very excited about it, which is great because they kind of do the same job all the time. And then today they're working with us or with you. And today is about healthcare. They're in a different line of work that day. It's interesting. And then often we end up with a wad of business cards, and when we have more clients, we send them their way.
I have my phone device now, please. Joke, sorry.
All right. Hold on.
Thank you. How many people are just like, amazing? Yeah. How many people want Patrick to come to your house right now?
You marry me.
All right. Thank you very much. I'll be around. Come ask me questions.
Great, thanks. Wow, huh? So I just want to touch on that briefly. As Patrick said, he does offer practitioner training programs. We actually have a number of NTPs in the U.S. that have done Patrick's training program. One of my colleagues that I went to school with, Brian Hoyer, works for Patrick in California.